we're delighted to welcome Delegate Hala Ayala, Prince William County, candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia, to This Week in Virginia. And you have been moving all around Virginia, and I see where you're this place, that place, talking with people, and really would like to give you an opportunity to tell our viewers something about yourself and about why you're running for Lieutenant Governor.
Sure. Thank you so much for that question, David. We have been crisscrossing the Commonwealth. We've been sharing our stories as well as taking stories of voters with us. So it's just been an awe-inspiring experience. Many of you know my story. You know, my family struggled after losing my father to gun violence at a very early age. You know, when that happens to you and your family, life is just so uncertain. You don't know if you're promised tomorrow or what the future holds for you. It just sets a whole new tone. And then add the challenges that I experienced very early on. And then when I started a family, when I was having my son, I was working at a gas station for minimum wage. I just didn't know. Again, our family was standing in food lines. We were on public assistance. I didn't have any healthcare or safety net until, I sought it out, but I thought I was going to be in another vicious cycle. So, just running for office has been an honor and such a privilege to do this, to serve and help others that have experiences like mine, but also have their experiences. The voters have their experiences that they're sharing with me. So I take that to heart. The compassion and empathy that I have for others, I hope will be exemplified through the work that I do. And that's what I'll do. I'll take these stories. I'm from Richmond. There's so many people out there that are just really needing our support.
Oh, they certainly are. I'm sure there are many different people and many different things that have happened that have impacted your life. But if you were describing one or two of the people or the times in your life when you were really impacted and it's kind of set you in the direction that you're going now, what would it be?
Well, besides my parents, you got to include them. And, lovely family members. I had an opportunity, I worked a lot of retail. I worked as a waitress very early. I started working at 15. And around the age between 16, 17, 18-ish, I got to do an administrative job for summer school at a school here in Northern Virginia. And I met a principal by the name of Claudia Covington. I came into the office not understanding what attire I should be wearing because it was my first job. And David, as you can imagine, I was coming in with jeans, sort of a t-shirt, big bamboo earrings, sneakers or boots, and it just didn't go over well. But, she took me aside. Claudia was a principal, a woman of color, another Black woman of color. And she said to me, I see you. I see the potential that you have. And she knew that I was struggling because the money I had shared with her, the money that I was making would go to my family. My mother had remarried. Even though my stepfather was in the military, he still wasn't, they were still struggling to make ends meet. She handed me a gift card. I had to go change my clothing and I showed up in a dress the next day. But from that point on, I learned to present myself in the way with confidence and poise and put my best foot forward because she knew that me being an Afro-Latina woman, a woman of color, that everything was always on the line for us. The way we are seen is the way we are judged. And she didn't want that for me. She knew that we have to overcome, double the scrutiny or the extra scrutinies that we face. So the lesson I take from Claudia, as well as my parents, is that her faith in me and the potential that she's seen was empowering to me. And I'm hoping through my candidacy that hopefully I'm planting those seeds as well.
As you think back on the years that you've spent in the General Assembly, and you certainly rose to some positions of prominence within the Democratic caucus, what do you see as some of the biggest accomplishments that you and your colleagues made during that time?
Well, I would say, I would say that there were so many issues, running in 2017. You heard that Medicaid, that issue was so very personal to me. The Equal Rights Amendment, expanding broadband, helping teachers and students. All of these were deeply personal to me, but they were so deeply personal to so many Virginians. And, I'm proud to have been one of the deciding votes for Medicaid expansion for over 500,000 Virginians. It's been an honor to be able to work on things that have impacted my life, gun safety reforms, and so many others, as you heard that play out on the floor in the General Assembly. Also, I'm proud to have introduced bills to expand broadband, to give state employees, cybersecurity training. So this has been the floor, not the ceiling, and to be a part of the Democratic majority that has delivered and moved this Commonwealth light years ahead has been just a phenomenal experience.
I was looking back at the list of the 41 lieutenant governors in the Commonwealth, and there's at least one common denominator, all males. I looked at the ones in the last decade, and about half of them were attorneys and the others were not. This November the 2nd, there will be a completely new face, a new image, a new person in the lieutenant governor's seat, and you are are the candidate from the Republican Party. One of you will be elected, and if you're in that role, what's your vision of serving as lieutenant governor? You've certainly served as a member of the House of Delegates, and you know that you're still serving today. But what's your vision of the lieutenant governor's position? Because you would be breaking new ground in so many different ways.
Well, we'll definitely be watching this November 2nd, and I will encourage all your viewers to vote. We need you to vote this November 2nd. Being potentially the first woman of color, as my opponent would also be potentially the first woman of color. But if Virginians choose me on November 2nd, first and foremost, it's not about, the ground that we'll be breaking, but hopefully the seeds we'll be planting. I'm a firm believer you can't be what you can't see. And so if we're not, as we look at the General Assembly, for instance, people say, wow, you look to one side of this chamber and it's so representative of the Commonwealth. You see a plethora of energies and beautiful diversity, so on and so forth, that really has changed and shaped the way Virginia has been represented. And now we're truly resemble, the Commonwealth. So hopefully in the statewide position for the first time, we can do the same and break new ground. But I'm excited to get to work day one. I'm going to hit that ground running and, protect Medicaid expansion and individuals' right to choose, continue to invest in our schools, students and teachers, and continue to pass gun safety reforms. I know the work that myself, along with Governor McAuliffe, AG Herring, will definitely do the work that needs to be done to continue to make progress. And that's what I'm excited about, the future of this Commonwealth. There'll be a different face here, as Lieutenant Governor, but hopefully it'll offer the sense that, Hala is ready to get to work. She is compassionate. She is going to work hard. And my door is always open. My phone is always on. My emails are always active. So we're going to do the same, we're going to bring the same energy as we did from the House of Delegates meeting, always listening, collaborating, and making sure we're doing the best for the Commonwealth.
I think most of our viewers know that the lieutenant governor position in the Commonwealth is, I guess, technically part-time. Of course, technically members of the General Assembly are part-time, and I see you and your colleagues working much more than just very part-time. But in that job, that presiding over the Senate being a dominant role and responsibility, you've been traveling around the Commonwealth. You've seen Virginia. You're seeing it, all parts of it. How do you see yourself in that role as lieutenant governor? I know you'll be presiding. You'll do that. But what else do you see yourself still traveling and still getting out and talking with people?
Absolutely. You know, I love the work that I do in cyber. I defending us from attacks from both abroad and domestically, in cyberspace. And I'll bring those expertise, to the forefront. I get a lot of questions about the work that I do. A lot I can't share because it's just work that I can't talk about. But what is really exciting is that service will always be at the heart of everything I do, even when I have to travel. My goal, is to bring those skill sets, and also the training that I was an EEO person. That was my collateral duty. Besides being a cybersecurity person, as I worked, we got collaterals. And so I learned to be a mediator when it came to hard issues. So I bring that skill set with me to the forefront. So you can count on me to continue to work. I'll bring my lived experiences, our viewers' lived experiences to the forefront. And there's always more work to do. We've got a lot of work. We've done some great work in both chambers these past 2 years. Democrats have been delivering. Definitely, David, we're going to continue to deliver as we've always done.
No, you can't tell us about what you do. That's very much secretive. But how did you get involved in cybersecurity? I think there must be an interesting story there too.
Well, it was by happenstance. From that gas station work that I did, I sought out an administrative assistant job. I did land it some years later, and all of a sudden, I started processing clearances. Then somebody came by and says, "Look, we need your expertise on this project with the Coast Guard and the Navy, and can you help?" I'm like, "Sure." They were like, "You're a fast learner. We don't have any extra person." And it was just by happenstance. I didn't have college education for cybersecurity. I didn't get any of that until later on. But, it was just being at the right place at the right time. And I think there's opportunity for us to learn. When you plant seeds in somebody's future, this job has enabled me to get out of poverty, to provide for my family, to keep a roof over my head, and be here today with you, as a statewide candidate. This is what opportunity looks like. It's the American dream that, if given the chance, if it doesn't always have to be a traditional chance, but just open the door a little bit, you'll be surprised of the American spirit, the ingenuity, the possibilities. And this is what happened. So I was a product of just that. Someone saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And all of a sudden, the world changed as I'm learning this work. 9/11 happened. And, I became a permanent cybersecurity person. I started doing more of this work, and I loved it. I felt a sense of service. Again, even though I didn't put on the uniform, my stepfather is United States Air Force. He retired after 30 years, and I'm serving along the United States Coast Guard in a civilian capacity, but doing service. It was something, again, that's at the heart of who I am, and I'm contributing to our country.
Thank you. That's an exciting part of the story. And as you've been traveling around, you've been meeting, I'm sure, people from small businesses, in which many of them have some of those same dreams and opportunities, but they've been having a really rough time during COVID. And what do you see that you and state government would be able to help them as they're wrestling with trying to come out of this pandemic and still have their business and still have their dream alive?
Nobody saw this pandemic coming. We saw something that hasn't happened in 100 years. I can't even believe I'm talking about a pandemic, and we're still dealing with that today. Businesses suffered, our families suffered. There was not one part of the Commonwealth that was not impacted by COVID, as well as this country. The pandemic knows no zip code, and no state border or capital or zip code, area code, nothing. And so we went back several times through special session, not only to allocate federal funding as we did in regular session this past session that just passed here, but also work towards providing funding for our small businesses and our, providing the resources so that we can continue to be a thriving economy. And as you've seen, I'm extremely proud to have been the patron of or carry the designated outdoor refreshments bill. I introduced that and passed that. That was an extremely fun bill to pass. It essentially said, hey, David, if you want to take your beverage with you, your alcoholic beverage with you to the neighboring store. So if I'm in Roanoke, I can go from, maybe, is it the Sweet Donkey, the coffee place out there, to maybe the Fork in the Alley and still be in compliance. So this has just allowed a lot of flexibility and helped businesses thrive. So I also, want to continue to support small businesses as I've done with this bill. And creating this bill just made a safer outdoor dining options, flexible for all patrons and businesses. So with that, I'll continue to be creative. I'll continue to help small businesses. And as I've had conversations with a lot of small business owners across this Commonwealth, and they brought fabulous ideals to the forefront, and I can't wait to take them with me to Richmond.
Some of the small towns in the rural parts of the Commonwealth have, whether it's on a Friday or some other time, almost closed down Main Street and have a festival because of that beverage bill, as you referred to it, that you got through the General Assembly. And it really has created new short festivals that people have for just an evening. And thinking of the rural communities, I mean, you're from the most populous portion of the Commonwealth. I see that Alexandria, Arlington, all are claiming you as one of theirs. You represent Prince William. What about the rural communities? Do you see your role as Lieutenant Governor and the role of state government in some way of helping rural communities, not just during COVID, but the help that's needed, whether it's schools or whatever it is? What's your message to the rural parts of the Commonwealth?
Well, I have been out there several times, more than 5, because I wanted voters to hear from me directly, and felt like we had a connection, that I was hearing them and bringing their concerns with me to Richmond. I was just in Roanoke, and I love Roanoke. It's a beautiful place. And I love other parts of Southwest. We just don't want no fighting. So let me just put that out there. But being in Roanoke, I just was out there with the First Lady, Pam Northam, and Senator Edwards and Delegate Rasul. And I visit the Higher Education Center. This was just one of the most notable higher education infrastructures that have been put out there and has just been doing excellent. So the topic was about STEM, just how we can invest in STEM. So we know rural communities are facing hardships when it comes to, hospital, opportunities or staff, I should say. So we need to invest more dollars there. We discussed broadband. I carried the bill for broadband expansion, for the last mile, but we need to continue to make sure that those projects get done and that they're funded. This is not just a one and done, it's an ongoing conversation. We just touched a little bit on small businesses, and now higher ed. I'm passionate about STEM or STEAM H, but this higher roundtable really brought to light some of the challenges that rural communities are facing, including the opportunity of jobs and, economic development and, get skilled and so that we can get a job. And this higher education platform, there's one identical or very similar to it in Northern Virginia, but I would love to bring this and expand this ideal to other parts of Virginia, because what they're doing there are planted seeds for our future. So when you say, what about us? Let's not only work about look at the here and now and absolutely address that, but also look to the future. And so this is what Roanoke is doing. They're being creative. They're thinking outside of the box, along with talking about their hardships and working with state legislators and hopefully a future lieutenant governor to continue to move Roanoke forward. It's a beautiful place, as is many parts of Southwest and southern parts of Virginia that I visited. And again, I'm really just touched about the stories and the work, the continued work that needs to be done. And you can count on me. It's just been a privilege to learn what the needs are and how I can work to uplift our community members in Roanoke and rural Virginia overall.
I saw something about your being there at that round table, and part of what stood out in my mind was that not too long ago, you and Delegate Sam Rasul were going head to head, and there were several other people also in that, but you were the two that were seeming to be rising to the top among the whole group of qualified candidates to run for lieutenant governor. And I thought, well, now that it's over, he's back working with you and you with him. And for that short time, you were not together. You were each making your own case. And how have you found that with your colleagues that you campaigned? In a sense, you weren't campaigning against them, you were campaigning for yourself. But is there unity out there now? People working together?
It was a privilege to run in the race of such wonderful candidates. We were so lucky in the Democratic ticket to have a plethora of opportunities to select a good candidate. And I am so honored that the voters, thought highly of me enough to choose me. But Delegate Rasul is my friend, and it's a privilege to have him alongside. He's a class act. He has, risen to the occasion, and we're colleagues. And so we're looking forward to working together for the future of Southwest. He represents, Roanoke and parts of it. And I'm just excited about the work he's going to do as we look to the next session, and working with my colleague, also Senator Edwards, who is also doing some amazing work, although he wasn't in the primary. I believe that, we each of us in this primary pushed each other to be better, to really work, to talk to voters and listen better and just be better, service members to our Commonwealth. And that was the goal. And so I just thank Senator Edwards for coming out to that event, but even more my colleague that I've served with for the last 4 years, Delegate Rasul, who's just a fabulous individual. And I'm just honored that, he's being a part of our journey. And this is important to him. And so, everything is on the line this November.
So how is the campaign going?
Well, I will tell you that the campaign is going great. We are, I shared with you my story. I shared with you how I overcome these struggles. And if you would have told me a few weeks ago, I would be standing on a podium with the President of the United States, and that fast forward it to in this process, be a candidate for statewide office, respectfully, I would have told you were nuts. I could, the truth of the matter is, I just would have never foreseen this, unless I had a crystal ball, but I've had a blast traveling, around the Commonwealth, getting to know more Virginians. I was in Virginia Beach also a few weeks back and met up with a couple who had lost their son tragically. And the couple just told me their story. It broke my heart. And the father pulled me aside and told me, "You're someone who has lived my struggles. And that is what makes me want to vote for you." And his story, I'm going to bring with me to Richmond, right? This couple has overcome a tragedy in their life and are advocates and providing a platform for those who are being bullied, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, in a safe space. And this is helping people heal on so many levels. And that was just a real touching story. It gives me that inspiration to continue to go every day.
I am sure that does energize you to talk with someone who can do that. Well, in our closing minute or two, looking at the cameras, they say, what message do you want to say to people who are trying to decide? There's a certain percentage of people, according to all the polls, that are undecided. Significant numbers have decided one way or the other. But those undecided voters, what would you want to say to them why they should put their mark on the ballot with your name and choose you to be the next lieutenant governor? So some people say that it's the so-called independent voters in Virginia, since we don't register by political party. Who knows who's really independent? But you have the Democrats, she has the Republicans, there's the independent voters, and they may be among the ones trying to decide. Labor Day is coming, people will start paying attention. What would you say to them?
Well, I will say to them this, I am going to be a voice for every Virginian, as I've done my work in the House and Chief Deputy Whip, and even through my personal legislation. I'm sorry about that background noise. I should have turned that off. And through my legislative process, I've worked across the aisle, and even legislation I passed has been supported in a bipartisan way. I'm going to work with every Virginian, keep my doors open, keep my ears open, talk less, because this is why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and just listen intently and bring every Virginian with me, their stories, their needs, their desires, and their voices to Richmond. We need to move the Commonwealth forward. And I want to make sure that Virginians know that if they should choose me on November 2nd, I will always make sure you have a seat at the table versus being on the menu.
Thank you very much, Delegate and candidate for Lieutenant Governor Hala Ayala. Thank you so much, and best to you on these days between now and November 2nd.